Today I'm actually going to do content which is kind of unusual / never before seen on my channel. I am going to do a tiny little book review. When Nikki Core and I went to Salem back in the fall, we visited a comic shop and I picked up this book, Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe. It has been sitting on my bookshelf since September, and so last night I sat down and finally read Genderqueer. And today I thought I could just do like a little tiny review / response to the book. Probably more of a response than a review, to be honest. I don't consider myself to be a great literary critic. And actually, if literary criticism is something that you're interested in, I do have a phenomenal friend named Jenny who is like a serious booktuber, and so I'm going to link to her channel down in the description of this video and go check her out if you have not already. Okay, where shall I start? I read this book last night and I literally sat down and read it straight through in one sitting. I'll show you one of the pages. It's wordy, but it's not too wordy. And I mean, the flow of the story really led me naturally straight through it. I never felt like, oh my gosh, here's a good time to step away or pause or come back to it another day. I really kind of wanted to digest a whole graphic novel memoir experience in one sitting. And I really love the art of this book. I mean, look at that. It is so pretty. I'm like this far into my video and realized that I never gave you any sort of like overview of what this book is about. And I honestly don't even want to give too much information because a huge part, obviously, of reading a memoir piece is getting to discover and learn about Maia and her journey with her gender and sexuality. But what I can say is that this book is about a protagonist, a real person, but a protagonist nonetheless, who is non-binary and asexual. And of course, as a non-binary ace person myself, I found that really, really, really meaningful. This is page 34 of the novel, and if you're not familiar with this character here, this is Elena from Tamora Pierce's Song of the Lioness Quartet, and Maia talks about Elena being her favorite character as a child, this girl who disguises herself as a boy in order to train as a knight. And I turned the page and was just like, oh my God, me too. And like instantly was moved. Maia talks a lot about her interest in literature, of course, in going to the library and reading, but also about her interest in fandom, fan culture, and fan fiction. This photo is sort of depicting the Queer Straight Alliance, which was formed at Maia's high school, and Maia writes about how it almost instantly turned into a Lord of the Rings fandom club. And here, later on in the book, Maia is talking about the supernatural fandom and fan culture, and Merlin, and also One Direction, queer shipping, gay ships. These were all things that were actually really formative for me in terms of understanding my identity, and not my gender necessarily, but a lot of my sexual identity. And I have never heard them included in a memoir or a coming out story in the way that Maia includes them. That was also so critical in my journey, and it feels silly, but it wasn't silly. It was actually very important. In this sequence, Maia is playing a board game with her aunt and cousin in the winter of 2016. And throughout the conversation, Maia asks this question: what do you two think would happen if I asked the family to use different pronouns for me? Oh my God. I mean, even just reading that question, I was like, wow. And on the next page, the cousin says this: what's more important, people changing the words they use for you or changing how they think about you? Oh my gosh, I was absolutely bowled over by the insightfulness of that question. And especially because it's not even coming from Maia, the protagonist. It is coming from someone who is tangential to our gender and sexuality journey. I feel like it just cuts straight to the heart of something that I often feel about my own gender when people are referring to me or perceiving me at a base level. Just getting my personal pronouns correct is so important. It's important, but there are times when I do feel like although people are referring to me with my they them pronouns, they still are treating me like a woman and they still view me as a woman, and I find that to be also very upsetting. So for the question to just address that flat out, I was really bowled over by it. A lot of the later portion of this book deals with Maia being in public spaces as a genderqueer person. And I also found that so relatable and so fascinating because there are so many instances of misgendering. And Maia seems to be really asking this question of like, when Do I speak up? Is there a time where I should have spoken up and completely just missed the moment and now it's gone? If I do speak up, am I putting myself at risk? If I don't speak up, am I sort of closing an opportunity for the people around me to learn and be exposed to a non-binary genderqueer role model? And something that I really love about this book is that not all of those questions had answers. And for people like me who are picking up this book with our own experiences of non-binariness, of gender expansiveness, it really allowed me to think about my own journey and my own answers to those questions. And one of the other questions which Maia brought up is how the intersection of ideas about gender, sexuality, and identity can be really, really, really confusing. That's certainly something that I experienced in my own journey of coming out and understanding myself as a person who maybe has a gender and some types of sexuality happening. I spent so long trying to define my own gender and sexuality experiences from this very binary, heteronormative viewpoint. When I started to remove those and actually say, well, what else is there? I found myself having so many more questions than answers, a lot of anxiety, a lot of dysphoria, and a lot of sort of panic. And I think this book did a really phenomenal job of illustrating that, and also illustrating the moments of euphoria where you do something or say something or try a new set of pronouns and suddenly everything makes sense, everything feels good, and it is just exactly right. The only thing that I want to say about genderqueer, which is more like cautionary or a warning, and it's sort of explicitly stated in the book description anyway, this book does deal with puberty, it deals with bodies changing, it deals with periods and visits to the gynecologist. I definitely would not say that the art is like graphic by any means, but there definitely are some depictions of nudity, of blood, of body parts. And personally, as someone who has experienced similar dysphoria in some of the areas which Maia is touching on, most specifically the visit to the gynecologist, the first one, and periods, I did find some of the art a little upsetting and a little triggering of my own feelings around those areas. So if you know that those are topics or issues that could upset you, it's just worth knowing that they're in there, and then you can make an educated decision about if and or when you would like to read this book. No doubt you will have also noticed the clickbait title of this video. Yes, it's true, genderqueer was one of the most banned books in 2022, with over 41 book bans being levied against it. And honestly, at this point, I'm sure there's been more. And all in all, there is a growing movement to restrict access to books, to resources like genderqueer. So I did want to end this video with a tiny little plug for a special program that is being run out of the Brooklyn Public Library. The Brooklyn Public Library is currently running an initiative called Books Unbanned, which allows teens nationwide between the ages of 13 and 21 to apply for a free Brooklyn Public Library card. And that way they will be able to access reading materials through the Brooklyn online public library system. So if there are bans going on in your school or your area and you do want access to important literature, certainly not limited to, but definitely including Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe, I'm going to drop a link for that initiative down in the description below. I hope this video will inspire you to pick up a copy of Genderqueer if you have not already. And I will see you on Sunday for some art about stuff. Dragons, I think. Bye-bye.